Hey friends, today's project is this cute DIY candlestick holder because I don't know if you noticed, but winter is here, and if you want to gift handmade this year, this is a really easy beginner level project and it's super nice. Okay, so for this project you will need a wedging board. So this is just a board that's wrapped around with fabric. If you don't have this, first watch my other video on the topic where I show you how to make a wedging board. But in the meantime, you can also use a piece of cloth. Just make sure you pull the cloth tight while you're working. You'll want some thickness gauges. These are 1/2 centimeter. You'll want a rolling pin, a ruler, a candle. This is to like measure how big the hole is. So use the candle that you want to use in your finished piece. You'll want a carving tool of some kind, a paintbrush, a rib, scoring tool, a knife, and lastly some water with a sponge in it, and something round to use as your template. And of course, you need clay. So I'm using stoneware clay as always. People always ask me which clay I'm using. I'm using a stoneware clay from a local supplier here in Germany. You should look for a local supplier in your area for where to get your clay from. So first I'm going to start with rolling out some clay. This is about 500 grams. I didn't measure it, I just grabbed the clay. It's more or less the size of an apple. So now we'll use our thickness gauges. You want to put them on either side of the clay and roll on the thickness gauges so that your clay never gets thinner than 1/2 centimeter. Make sure when you're rolling your clay, you're continually flipping the clay. You don't want to roll it too much in one direction. You want it to expand in an even way. So I'm thinking that this is actually a little bit too small of a piece now, but it's definitely enough for the main parts. So I'm going to just start with this, and then as I need to, I'll roll out some more clay. But before I cut out the pieces, I want to rib the clay. So this tool is called a rib. You want to use this to compress your clay. This will help with things like cracking later on. So you just want to gently stroke the clay, just dragging the rib across the clay. And then you want to do it on both sides. Okay. So now I'll cut out my circle. I'm going to try and economize this piece as much as possible, so I'll put it in the corner and then use my knife to cut it out. Okay, so we have our circle cut out. I'm going to use my ruler. I'm thinking the thickness of this ruler is the perfect amount of height that we want for the part that's holding the candlestick. So I'm just going to use this, put it right down on my flat piece of clay, and just use the thickness of the ruler as a gauge so I don't have to measure because I'm lazy. Okay, so I'm going to be using this candlestick as a gauge. However, the clay does shrink a little bit, so I want it to fit very loosely in here. Better to make the piece that's a little bit tighter on the candle than too thin, because of course you can always shave down the candle to fit a little bit better in the candlestick. But because I know the clay is going to shrink about 10%, I'm going to just make it loose now and hope that it shrinks to the perfect size. So to attach these two pieces, first I'm going to cut at about a 45-degree angle, so I have a taper here. Flip it over, and then I'll measure it. So I'll cut it here. Again, I'm just kind of loosely fitting it around. And now I want to attach these two parts together, so I have to cut another taper here. So I'm cutting it so that these two pieces actually overlap without adding too much thickness, because I want it to just be like a perfect circle. So now I will score the two pieces that come together. I'm just scratching the two pieces that come together, and then use my paintbrush to add a little water to each side. If you're not using fresh clay, you'll always want to use slip, but because this is fresh clay, I'm just going to add some water and squeeze these two pieces together. So here's the part that's going to fit in our candle. So let's see if it fits. Okay, so it's a little bit tight actually, but that's okay because what I can do is like compress the clay a little bit. I'm just like putting a small bit of pressure evenly around while I roll it. This should stretch the clay. Oh yeah, look, look. So this is more or less what we're going for here. So like kind of a loose connection here. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside. Last thing I want to do is make that nice rim around the edge. So for this I need to roll out some more clay. This piece actually has to be quite long, so I'm gonna patch two pieces together because I hate wasting clay. After you rolled it out, you know, it makes sense rather to patch together than to start over and recycle this. So I'm going to just cut two lengths then. I don't want it to be quite the same thickness as the candlestick bit. I want it to be a little bit shorter. So I need to first figure out how thick this ruler is. So this ruler is 2.5 centimeters thick, so I'm gonna go 2 centimeters for the rim around the edge. Draw a straight line. And then measure 2 centimeters. Twice. Right, so it fits about halfway, so I guess it will be enough. Just trying to be economic with my pieces now. So the same thing applies here. Just score and add a bit of water. Maybe you can still see, although you shouldn't really see, like the original cut was about here. So we've just blended it together, so like it's like one long piece now. Now I'm going to put this on top of the edge here. Then I'll mark where they overlap. I'm gonna lose a little bit of clay on either end because it's a little messy. Okay, fits pretty much perfectly. I mean, the great thing about clay is that you never have to be too accurate. So now we just need to attach these two pieces together. I want to attach these before I attach this because I want to make sure this is in the center of this, and you know, as you're moving things around it gets a little wonky. So I'm first going to attach the outer part, and I want to score all the way around. Make sure you're scoring pretty good, you know, like I see a lot of beginners sometimes scoring like really shallowly. You really want to rough up the surface because the scoring acts like a Velcro to really connect the pieces together. So just go as deep as you can without deforming the piece. Now we want to put pressure downward into the bottom, but we don't want to collapse it. So it's just a matter of being gentle with it and putting like firm, but not too much pressure at once. Now, before I go into cleaning up these dirty edges, what I want to do is actually let that sit for a little while and soak in and kind of firm up before I go ahead and clean those up. So I think about 5 minutes you want to wait so it can firm up a little bit. So luckily I have another piece that I need to attach and that also needs to wait 5 minutes. So I'm going to now attach this piece, and by the time I'm done with that, this should be ready to clean up. And then by the time I'm done cleaning up this one, the middle piece should be ready to clean up as well. So to smooth everything out, I'm going to use my rib. What I want to do is kind of pull the clay from the bottom up into the wall. That will help kind of strengthen that bond as well. And then on the inside, I'm going to take my brush that's now damp but no longer too wet, and I'm going to just smooth it out with the brush on the inside. You want a soft brush for this. Now, if you want, you can put another coil on the inside of here if you feel like the seam is a little weak, or you just want like a kind of sloped edge instead of kind of a right angle. You can have like a more of a sloped edge. Then you could add a coil in between there. But I think I'm just gonna leave it. I mean, my connection is quite strong, so I think it looks quite nice. So I'll do the same for the inside, just using my brush where my finger can't really fit. And so here we have it. Now our construction is complete. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna wait for about 2 hours so let this dry out a little bit, and then I want to go in and add some carvings. However, you can leave it at this stage if you want to. Now the decoration and the design is up to you, but I want to carve it a little bit, so I'm going to let this dry out. You want to wait until it's leather hard before you carve anything. So I'm going to let this dry out for a bit, and then I'll get back with the carving and probably a little bit more tidying up. It's pretty firm now. Basically, I want it to dry out until the point that I can sort of move it with my hands a little bit if I put pressure on it, but it's like pretty stable. Like it's not gonna flop over or anything like it was at one point. So at this stage, I'm going to start carving it. Peanut is eating in the background, so maybe you can hear some chomping. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna use this trimming tool here. I'm just going to I'm going to add some little stripes to the edge, just something simple. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go over it once more with a sponge to kind of smooth everything out. Pino, you joining us? All right, we're finished. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please write in the comments down below what project you would like to see me do next. All right, bye guys. Are you gonna be quiet now? You're gonna not laugh at me? You're gonna not do anything that's gonna make me laugh?
Yeah. Can I interrupt?
No! You absolutely cannot. That's good enough.